First story. My stepson is dumb. He can't even read what my bio son, who is a year younger than him, reads. So I called him a loser at a birthday party game for fun. And my entitled stepson humiliated me, so I grounded him. Now I'm regretting my actions. Full disclosure, I'm a playful guy. That's just how I've always been. I like to joke around, and I like to push people's buttons a bit, not maliciously, but just because I find it funny. Some people are way too easy to rile up, and honestly, I enjoy getting a rise out of them. Doesn't mean I'm mad or angry, it just means I'm in character. My tone is always exaggerated and obviously joking, and everyone who knows me knows that's how I operate. I've got 3 kids from my first marriage. My ex-wife and I divorced about 4 years ago, mostly because we stopped being compatible and had grown apart. It wasn't messy, no court drama, just a mutual agreement and joint custody. I get the kids on weekends, and despite everything, we've stayed on decent terms. Surprisingly, my ex and my current wife get along way better than I expected. They even hang out sometimes when the kids are over, which still weirds me out. But hey, whatever works. My current wife has 1 son, who I'll call Theo. He's 8. My youngest is 7, and my oldest is 12, just for context. I'll be honest here, Theo doesn't really click with my kids. They're more academically ahead, more confident, and just sharper, for lack of a better word. I care about him, I do. But sometimes it feels like we're playing catch-up with him, especially in school-type stuff. A while back, we were at a family gathering, and someone gave all the kids a little word puzzle worksheet just for fun, nothing formal. Theo kept asking what certain words meant, and had trouble reading out simple instructions. The sheet said, "Circle all the animals," and he circled the word table. I asked if he read it, and he said, "Yeah, it said table's an animal." I said, "No, it says circle all the animals, and a table isn't one." And he just kind of laughed and shrugged. I didn't press it, but it stuck in my head. Now fast forward to last weekend. It was my mom's birthday, which happened to fall on Mother's Day this year. We planned a family gathering at her place. Me, my wife, my kids, Theo, and my ex-wife was also invited. That part was my wife's idea. She thought it would be nice for the kids to have both parents there, and said it'd mean a lot to my mom. I went along with it, even though part of me knew it might be awkward. Background on that. My wife skipped my mom's last 2 birthdays. The first time she said she was exhausted and wanted a quiet weekend, and the second time she said she wanted Mother's Day for herself and took Theo out for the day. Which meant my mom didn't get to see any of the grandkids, including the 3 she's had the longest. So this time she was happy she finally got her family together, and she was laughing and smiling all night. We had dinner and some drinks, and then brought out this custom version of Pictionary I made. I tweak the categories so they're more fun for the kid stuff like cartoons, simple actions, or animals. It's a hit every time. My kids were killing it, of course. Everyone's clapping and having fun. Then it's Theo's turn. He picks a card and starts drawing a tree. Everyone guesses tree, and we all clap. But then I glance at the card in his hand. It doesn't say tree. It says treehouse. He literally didn't even try to draw the house part. So I stopped the round, took a point off the board, and said, "Sorry, he drew the wrong thing. It wasn't supposed to be serious." We all laughed. Even Theo laughed, or at least he smiled. I played up my usual jokey tone and said, "No wonder you never win at anything. You still don't even know how to read, you loser." It came out with a grin, in that over-the-top game show voice I always used. Literally the same tone I use with my own kids when they mess up during games, and I call them little cheaters or say they're fired from the team. It's family banter, not bullying. But this time, the room went kind of quiet. People stopped laughing. My wife's smile disappeared, and even my ex-wife gave me this look like I just insulted a baby. My mom still laughed, she gets my humor, but everyone else suddenly got real serious. My wife pulled me aside and told me that what I said wasn't okay. I was like, "Seriously? You think he's hurt?" He was laughing. She said, "It doesn't matter. You embarrassed him in front of everyone." I said it was a joke, the same way I joke with my own kids. That's when my ex-wife chimed in, saying, "Yeah, but your kids are used to you calling them stuff like that. They know how to handle you. Theo doesn't." And I was like, "Why are you even involved in this? He's not your kid." Apparently, that was the wrong thing to say. Because then she and my wife started ganging up on me about how I always take things too far, how I don't know when to stop, and how Theo is sensitive and I should adjust my tone around him. I told them flat out, I'm not going to stop being myself just because someone else is too soft to handle a little sarcasm. I've seen how other parents baby their kids. They act like saying the word loser is the same as committing a felony. It's not. It's called raising kids with thicker skin. My kids joke back with me all the time. We roast each other constantly. They love it. It makes them sharp, quick, and confident. They're not afraid of words. So no, I didn't apologize. I told them all to lighten up. I went back to the game, kept the energy going, and tried to make the party fun again. But the vibe was definitely off. People were quieter. My nieces and nephews weren't laughing as much. Even my oldest daughter looked kind of unsure. I think the worst part is that now my wife is barely talking to me, and she keeps saying she's disappointed. Like I let her down somehow. I said, look, if the kid can't read, then maybe we stop pretending he's doing amazing and actually help him get better. That set her off even more. I don't get it. I do my part. I watch the kids, I host family nights, and I try to keep the mood light. And now, because I made one joke that didn't land, I'm suddenly the arsehole. Theo is really kind of dumb. A few months ago, we were playing Monopoly Junior at home. Theo kept miscounting spaces, picking the wrong colors, and mixing up cards. My 7-year-old, who's a whole year younger, had to keep correcting him. At one point, Theo landed on a property, and instead of paying, he just handed over 2 random bills that didn't add up. I laughed and said, man, we need to get you a calculator or a tutor. Monopoly might be too advanced for you. Again, the same joking tone. My kids laughed. Theo didn't say anything. My wife later told me she had to talk to him that night because he felt stupid. I told her that's not my fault if being corrected during a board game makes you feel dumb. That's a self-esteem issue that existed before I said anything. I don't target him. I don't go out of my way to humiliate him. But I treat him the same way I treat the rest of the kids. And somehow that's the problem now. Apparently, treating him equally doesn't work because he's not at the same level. So I'm supposed to adjust everything: how I joke, how I talk, how I parent to cater to one kid who might not even be mine long term. I told my wife that. She got quiet, said, so now he's just disposable. I didn't say that. I said I care about him, I just don't think I should be expected to parent him differently than my other kids when we're all in the same house. That's not fair to anyone, including Theo. Back to the party after the Pictionary thing, the whole night was basically dead. My mum still had a good time, but she could tell people were walking on glass. After the guests left, my wife barely said a word. The next morning, she told me she was reconsidering how we blend the kids going forward. I said, reconsidering what? That we expect basic reading comprehension when playing a game with written cards. She didn't laugh. Then my ex texted me later that day, a long arse message about how my attitude is setting a bad example for our kids, how they're learning to punch down instead of lift up, and how she used to find my humor charming, but now just sees a man who needs people to feel small to feel big. All of that from a woman who used to laugh the loudest when I'd roast her brother at family barbecues. It's hypocritical. Everyone was fine with my personality until suddenly it was inconvenient. I never changed. I've always been this way: sarcastic, blunt, quick with a joke. The only thing that changed is that now people want me to censor myself because Theo isn't used to it. That's not my fault. He's not emotionally fragile because of one Pictionary round. If that shook him, then there's a bigger problem here, and pretending otherwise doesn't help him in the long run. No one wants to say it out loud, but Theo struggles. And instead of addressing it, everyone tiptoes around it. It's not abuse to point that out in a moment where it was obvious. I've never punished him, and I've never made him cry. I treat him like one of the kids, and maybe that's exactly the issue. Maybe everyone else treats him like a charity case, and I'm the only one who doesn't. Also, let's be real, my ex-wife stepping in like that wasn't about Theo. She saw an opening to make me look bad in front of my current wife. She's done that before, but never this directly. It was calculated. She knew Theo wasn't her kid. That didn't stop her from going full morality cop, like she suddenly cares how I talk to children. If she had her way, I'd be some quiet, beige, emotionally neutered stepdad who hands out juice boxes and tells everyone they're special. That's not me. Since the party, my wife's still acting cold. She sleeps facing the other way. She barely responds when I talk about plans for the weekend with the kids. Last night she said she doesn't know how to trust me with her son right now. That's a serious thing to throw around over a joke that had no malice, no yelling, no shaming, just a sarcastic tone I've used for years. I get it, not every joke lands. But now I'm being painted as cruel, even manipulative, for calling an 8-year-old a loser in a joking tone during a light family game after he clearly didn't read the word on the card. I didn't humiliate him. I didn't berate him. And he smiled when I said it. So now I'm stuck in this weird place where my wife thinks I'm a bully. My ex-wife is acting like some sainted co-parent. And I'm the only one who seems to remember this was a birthday party, not a therapy session. I didn't say anything I haven't said before. I didn't go harder on Theo than I would have with any other kid in the room. And I'm not going to start acting fake just to make everyone else feel morally superior. So, Reddit Ada? Comments. Comment 1. It's called raising kids with thicker skin. Bro, you're not raising Spartans. You're just being kind of a DCK and calling it parenting. Real talk. Your whole vibe screams. I can dish it out, but I can't take being questioned. Like, your ex-wife blinks and suddenly she's stalking your family? Chill. Also that line, he's not even her kid, so why is she defending him? Man, that's wild. Maybe because she's a decent adult and saw a grown arse man call a literal child a loser in front of his whole family. You can't be out here roasting 8-year-olds like you're on stage at the goddamn Comedy Cellar. No one's asking you to be neutered, just to not be the guy everyone low-key hopes doesn't show up to game night. YTA. Comment 2. As a stepmom to a kid who struggled with reading too, this one hit hard. You may not see the damage you're doing, but trust me, that boy felt humiliated. Laughing. Yeah, we all laugh when we don't know how to defend ourselves. He was probably just trying to survive that moment without crying in front of everyone. Your kids roast back because they've learned that's the only way to earn your approval. Act tough. Don't show weakness. But Theo isn't wired like that. And if your wife's saying she doesn't know how to trust you with her son, that's serious. That's not about a one-liner during a game. That's about a pattern. Also, stop blaming your ex-wife for noticing things your wife is too deep in to admit. Sometimes the person with distance can actually see the clearest. And no, it's not babying a kid to not publicly mock them for falling behind. It's called parenting with compassion. YTA. And if you don't course correct now, don't be surprised when that boy grows up and doesn't speak to you. Comment 3. You said he's not as smart as your kids. You brought up past moments to prove it. You clearly think less of him, and you used Pictionary as the vehicle to say what you've been thinking. That wasn't off the cuff. That was calculated. YTA. And not just for this incident though, yeah, also for this. You treat sarcasm like a personality. It's not. It's a mask you use to humiliate people while hiding behind the excuse of, I was just being funny. If the target of your joke isn't laughing, it's not a joke. It's cruelty with a laugh track. What's worse is that you're shaping your own kids to believe love equals sign tolerance of disrespect. That the only way to be accepted by dad is to learn how to be okay with being mocked. You're doing real damage, and one day they might stop laughing too. But yeah, sure, tell us again how your ex-wife is the toxic one. Update. I read the comments. All of them. Even the ones that were just people unloading their own issues onto me. I didn't reply because there was no point. Once Reddit decides you're the bad guy, everything you say gets twisted. Still, a few people asked for an update, and I need to get this out somewhere because my real life has turned into a constant ambush. After the party, my wife didn't leave right away, but something shifted. She wasn't cold exactly, she was strategic. That's the only word I can think of. Conversations became shorter. Everything I said started getting examined like evidence. And then I started noticing Theo behaving differently. At first, I thought it was just him being awkward. Then I realized he was studying me. The first incident happened during a card game a couple weeks later. I joked when he messed up a rule and said, "You're really committed to losing, huh?" Same tone I've always used. He didn't get upset. He didn't shut down. He looked straight at me, smiled and said, "You said jokes are okay if people smile." I'm smiling. Does that mean I'm not hurt? The table went quiet. My wife froze. My oldest stopped playing. I opened my mouth to respond and realized I couldn't say anything without contradicting myself. If I said yes, then apparently feelings don't matter. If I said no, then I just admitted the smile thing was bullshit. I laughed it off and said he was being dramatic, but it didn't land. He nodded like he was filing it away. That was the beginning. After that, it felt like every interaction was a setup. Another time, I made a comment about him taking forever to decide during a board game. He asked, in front of everyone, "Can you explain why that's funny? I don't get it." So I tried to explain. And the more I talked, the worse it sounded. Because stripped of tone, stripped of delivery, the joke was just me pointing out he was slow. That's it. No punchline. No clever twist. Just me talking. The room went silent again. Not awkward silence, judgment silence. Then came the school thing. Theo brought home his report card. Overall, yeah, he's still struggling with reading and maths. No shock there. But there was a section from his science teacher. Apparently, they'd been doing a unit on ecosystems and memory-based classification. He got a near-perfect score, and even corrected another student during a presentation. At dinner, he started explaining something about food chains and energy transfer. I assumed he was parroting something he memorized and said, "Sounds like you watched a YouTube video." My wife didn't say anything, just looked at me. 2 days later, the teacher emailed us. She specifically mentioned Theo's explanation at dinner. My wife had apparently told her about it. The teacher said it was accurate, advanced for his age, and showed strong conceptual understanding. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just looked like an arsehole who dismissed something I didn't understand. Then he started opting out. Game night? He stayed on the couch. When asked why, he said, "I'm bad at games. I don't want to mess up." My wife looked at me like, "This is what you did." I said nothing, because saying anything would have been used against me anyway. The worst moment came last week. We were at my mum's place again, smaller group this time. I made a joke, something mild, about him taking a long time to answer a trivia question. He didn't react. Then he said, "It's okay. I know you need to feel smarter than me." I felt humiliated. Not because an 8-year-old insulted me, but because I could see exactly what was happening. He'd been trained. There's no other word for it. An 8-year-old doesn't talk like that unless someone's feeding him lines and coaching him on timing. I grounded him on the spot. Not for the words, for the disrespect. For saying something deliberately meant to humiliate me in front of others. My wife lost it. Said I was punishing him for using my own logic. I said no, I was punishing him for being deliberately disrespectful and for being coached to do it. I told her flat out that she's been preparing him, arming him, and turning him into a tool to make a point instead of addressing things like an adult. That blew everything open. She admitted she's been talking to him, teaching him how to respond, teaching him how to protect himself. She didn't deny it. She framed it like empowerment. I see it as manipulation. You don't put an 8-year-old in adult conflict. You don't teach a kid to publicly dismantle their stepfather as some kind of gotcha exercise. Since then, things have spiraled. My mum pulled me aside later and said she thinks things have gone too far. She admitted she laughed at the party out of habit, not because it was funny. That hurt. She also said grounding him might have been a mistake, but she understands why I snapped. My ex texted me later, saying that she's concerned about my influence on my own kids. She has no business commenting on my household, especially when she's been hovering around every gathering like she's waiting for me to slip. My wife finally said the word. Therapy. Individuals and couples. Not as a suggestion, as a condition. She said she doesn't recognize me anymore. I told her I haven't changed at all. That this is how I've always coped, how I connect, how I survive. Humor has always been my thing. It's how I deal with stress, with tension, with life. Not everything needs to be treated like a trauma response under a microscope. She said, maybe that's the problem. Now I'm stuck. I feel cornered. I feel like every word I say is a test I didn't agree to take. I have self-respect too. Being publicly corrected, challenged, and psychologically boxed in by a child coached by adults doesn't feel like growth, it feels like humiliation disguised as progress. And to the Reddit crowd who went nuclear on me, congrats. You got your arse a hole. You called me narcissistic, pathetic, and abusive. You stripped away context and decided I'm some cartoon bully. You don't see the full picture. You don't live here. You don't get to define my entire character based on one post and then pretend it's concern. I don't think I'm perfect. But I also don't think I deserve to be dismantled piece by piece for being who I've always been. I make jokes. That's my language. I don't think everything needs to be sanitized. And I don't think coaching a kid to psychologically counter an adult is healthy either. So here I am. Marriage strained. Household tense. A kid who now sees me as an opponent instead of a stepfather. And everyone acting like this was inevitable. I still don't think I was wrong at the start. But now I'm not even sure what right looks like anymore. Ada? Comments. Comment 1. Let me break it down for you, since you seem so goddamn confused. Theo isn't being trained. He's learning self-defense. Emotionally. Verbally. You've created a space where he gets belittled and laughed at by the person who's supposed to protect him. What the F did you think your wife would do? Leave him out to dry just so you could keep feeling funny? That boy is evolving. He figured out that crying wouldn't work. Shutting down didn't help. So now he's playing your game using your words, your logic, and your style. And guess what? You hate it. Of course you do. Because the second your joke stops making people laugh, you can't handle it. But he's not cruel. He's calm. He's smarter than you gave him credit for. And now that terrifies you. Your self-image is crumbling. And instead of sitting with that discomfort, you blame an 8-year-old for undermining you. You're not being ganged up on, you're finally being seen. Comment 2. You know what I see? I see a woman who's tired of being the translator for a man who refuses to read the room. Your wife isn't strategic. She's exhausted. She's parenting 2 kids, her son and you. She's doing damage control after every gathering, every dinner, every damn game night. And when does she finally equip her son to advocate for himself? You lose your mind. God forbid a child makes you look petty with a sentence. You want to be funny, but you don't want consequences. You want to be yourself, but only if everyone plays along. And the part that gets me, you keep saying you feel humiliated. As if an 8-year-old calmly calling out your nonsense in front of a few adults is equal to the years of jabs, dismissals, and one-liner digs he's had to eat in silence. You're not being attacked. You're being outgrown. Comment 3. If a kid starts smiling through the burn, it doesn't mean they're fine. It means they're learning to shrink. That joke you think is harmless. That's the moment they start thinking they're the problem. Your stepson didn't clap back to humiliate you, he mirrored you. He used your words, your tone, and your logic. That's a kid trying to understand what makes someone like you tick, so he can stop getting hurt. You're stuck in a version of masculinity that doesn't allow for softness even from yourself. But if you don't change course, you're going to lose more than just your moral high ground. You're going to lose the people who still believe there's good in you. Update. I've been sitting on this for a while. After everything that happened, I tried to lay low. Just keep things quiet. No more jokes. No sarcasm. No teasing. I thought maybe if I just gave it space, things would reset. They didn't. My wife's been distant, but not in a cold or angry way, just done. That's the word. She's moving like someone going through the motions. She still talks to me, still does the basics, but there's no energy in it. And the worst part is, Theo's not acting like a victim anymore. He's not sad or scared or sulking. He's just neutral, like I'm another adult in the house. I thought maybe an apology would help. So one morning before school, I asked him to come outside with me for a minute. I told him I was sorry for how I've talked to him. That I didn't mean to make him feel stupid. And that sometimes my jokes aren't as funny as I think they are. He said, okay, and that was it. Not thanks. Not, I forgive you. Just, okay. He went inside and grabbed his backpack. I stood there like an idiot. It was the exact opposite of how I thought it would go. I didn't expect a hug or tears, but I thought something would shift. It didn't. I felt worse than before. Then, a few nights later, he came into my office and knocked. I said, yeah. And he stood in the doorway and said, I'm sorry I was disrespectful to you at Grandma's house. He said it in the exact same tone I used to hear from my own kids when they were coached into apologizing, rehearsed, stiff, emotionless. And in that moment, it hit me that he wasn't actually apologizing to me. He was apologizing for me. Because he thought he had to. He's 8. I didn't know what to say. I told him it was okay, and he nodded and left. I talked to my wife about it later that night. I didn't accuse her. I didn't frame it like she made him do it. I just asked if she thought he really felt he had to apologize. She said, he said he didn't like how you looked at him after. He thought he made you mad. I said, he didn't make me mad. He made me look stupid. She said, he knows that. That one sentence knocked the wind out of me. Because it was true. He'd figured it out. He made me look small using my own tone and logic, and I punished him for it. And he knew. Not just that I punished him unfairly, but why. Since then, I haven't joked once. Not with him. Not with my kids. Not at work. I feel like a shell of myself. My humor was never about cruelty, at least I didn't think so. But now it feels like a loaded gun. I don't trust myself to hold. I've lost the one way I knew how to connect. Now I just sit at dinners trying to think of something safe to say, and usually say nothing at all. And it's bleeding into other places. I got called into a meeting at work last week. One of my team members, a newer guy, smart, quiet, mentioned in a feedback form that my tone makes it hard to approach me with questions. He wrote, it's difficult to tell if he's joking or if I'm being made fun of. I don't even remember what I said to the guy. But the fact that he walked away feeling mocked, I thought that was just a home issue. Now I'm seeing it's not. At this point, I agreed to go to therapy. My wife didn't push it. She just said she was looking into options. I picked one. Figured I'd go once, at least to prove I was trying. The therapist didn't waste time. She asked me why I think I joke the way I do. I said it's how I connect. She asked what happens when people don't laugh. I said I move on. She asked what happens when they feel uncomfortable. That one I didn't answer. She said, humor can be protection, but it can also be power. Which is it for you? I haven't gone back yet. I will, I think. But I haven't stopped thinking about that line. Then last night, my wife finally talked. Like, really talked. She said she spent the last year building Theo back up after every hit, big or small, that I didn't even notice I was delivering. That I made him doubt himself in the middle of the most formative years of his life. That she watched him go from outgoing to withdrawn, and I either didn't see it or chose to laugh through it. She said it's not about whether I love him. It's about whether he feels safe in the same room as me. That sentence. It gutted me. Because I never considered that part. I just assumed if I didn't yell, or hit, or rage, then I was fine, safe, funny, cool dad. I didn't consider that silence can be fear too. I'm still on the fence. I don't like who I've become, this neutered, humorless version of myself. But at the same time, I can't ignore what I've done. Not anymore. I keep asking myself, was it really just jokes? Or was it something else? Something I didn't want to look at too closely until now. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if my wife still sees a future with me, or if she's already halfway out the door. I don't know if Theo will ever trust me again, or if he ever did. I don't even know how to start repairing anything. But I know this. I don't want that kid to shrink when I walk into a room. I don't want to be someone my family has to recover from. So yeah, maybe this is what learning looks like. And maybe that's not funny at all. Comments. Comment 1. So now you feel like SHT and don't know how to function without being the loudest guy in the room. Cool. Welcome to the part where consequences finally showed up. You think losing your sense of humor is bad? That's nothing compared to what that kid felt every time you casually knocked the wind out of him with your banter. And don't pat yourself on the back for apologizing either. You didn't apologize because you understood. You apologized because the kid's silence made you uncomfortable. You weren't competing with an 8-year-old. You were losing to him, so you mocked him to level the field. You want to be better? Then be better. Don't just narrate your struggle like you're the main character in some redemption arc. Do the work. Sit in the damn discomfort. And don't you dare make that kid carry your shame too. Comment 2. I grew up with a stepdad like you. Funny guy, big presence, always made the room laugh, except when the joke was about me. Then I had to laugh too, or risk being called too sensitive. I didn't hate him. I just learned to hide parts of myself around him. I got quiet when I didn't understand things. I kept hobbies to myself if I wasn't good at them. It took until my mid-20s to realize I never actually knew if he liked me or just tolerated me. You've left scars on that kid. That kid shrinking in the room. That's real. And it's not because you were cruel. It's because you didn't know how to love him without needing to feel smarter, funnier, or louder. You still have time. Not forever, but still. If you keep going to therapy and keep showing up instead of talking over, that boy might grow up knowing you're someone safe. But don't stop halfway and call it progress. He needs more than your silence. He needs your presence without the punchlines. Update. I wish I could say this update is about growth or redemption. It's not. It's about consequences catching up to me faster than I expected. After my last post, I really believed I was doing better. I wasn't joking as much. I was watching my tone. I kept telling myself that change doesn't happen overnight, and that people needed to give me some credit for trying. In hindsight, that belief did most of the damage. The first real crack showed up at a school open house. Theo's class had their work on the walls, parents milling around, and kids introducing their families. I was standing next to him when one of his classmates asked who I was. Theo hesitated not long, but long enough to notice, then said, "That's my mum's husband." The kid asked, "Is he your dad?" Theo shrugged and said, "He's kind of mean sometimes." I laughed it off immediately, because that's what I do. I said something like, "Guess I need to work on my PR," expecting it to land. It didn't. The other parent just nodded awkwardly. Theo didn't look at me again for the rest of the night. I brought it up to my wife later, half joking, half looking for reassurance. She didn't give it. She just said, That's how he feels. You don't get to decide it's wrong. A week later, she told me she wanted to talk about boundaries. Specifically, she said she wasn't comfortable with me disciplining Theo anymore. No punishments, no grounding, no correcting him in the moment. She framed it calmly, like a logistical change. I heard it as a demotion. I argued that you can't be a step-parent without authority. She said authority without trust is just control. I didn't like that answer, but I didn't have a clean rebuttal either. Around that time, my ex-wife threw another curveball. She called and said she was keeping our kids for the next 2 weekends. She said they'd mentioned tension at my house, and that she wanted to give them a break from it. I accused her of using my situation against me. She said she wasn't, that she was doing what she always does when things feel unstable. My therapy sessions continued. The session I can't stop replaying was when the therapist asked about my dad. I gave the usual surface-level answers: tough guy, sarcastic, believed in thick skin. She asked how I felt around him growing up. I said fine. She didn't let it go. Asked again. I eventually admitted that I was always on edge, always trying to stay one step ahead of his jokes, so I wasn't the punchline. She said, "So you learned early that humor is how you stay safe." I told her she was reaching. She asked if I felt safe now that no one was laughing anymore. I didn't answer, trying to prove to myself more than anyone that I wasn't the monster everyone thought I was. I asked my wife if I could take Theo out one-on-one. She hesitated but agreed, with conditions. Public place. Short outing. No jokes at his expense. I promised. We went to a bowling alley with a small arcade attached. He brought a friend from school, his idea, which should have told me something. The whole time, he stayed polite but distant. I tried asking about school. Short answers. Tried talking about games. Minimal engagement. Then he bowled a gutter ball. His friend laughed, not maliciously, just kids being kids. Without thinking, I said, "Man, that lane really hates you." Old reflex. Automatic. Theo didn't laugh. His friend went quiet. I realized too late what I'd done and tried to soften it by adding, "Kidding, kidding." But the damage was immediate. A few minutes later, Theo knocked over his soda. I said, "Careful, you're on a roll today." His friend's mum was there to pick him up and definitely heard it. She gave me a look I recognized, the same one from the party months ago. Judgment mixed with concern. On the drive home, Theo stayed silent. When we got inside, he went straight to his room. My wife asked how it went. I said, "Fine." She didn't argue. She just nodded like someone confirming a decision already made. After that, Theo withdrew completely. He stopped speaking to me unless necessary. He ate meals faster and left early. If I entered a room, he'd find an excuse to leave. My wife started doing the same. Conversations became transactional. Schedules. Logistics. No warmth. No tension either, which was worse. 2 weeks later, she asked me to sit down. She was calm. She said she'd been thinking a lot, and that she didn't see a future where Theo could heal in this house. Not with me still figuring things out. She said she believed I was trying, but trying wasn't enough when the cost kept landing on her son. She told me she'd found a place close to his school. She said she wasn't trying to punish me or make a statement. She just needed to choose her kid. They moved out a week later. The house is quiet now. My kids still come on weekends, but they've noticed the absence. They don't ask many questions. My ex hasn't said, "I told you so," which somehow makes it worse. I replay everything constantly. The jokes. The apologies. The times I could have stopped and didn't. I still don't fully recognize the man everyone says I am, but I can't deny the trail I left behind either. I don't know if this is rock bottom or just another lesson I'll fail to apply. I only know that I lost someone who gave me every chance to change, and a kid who learned too early how to disappear around adults. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm writing it because this is where the road I kept defending actually led, and I don't know how to walk it back. Comments. Comment 1. I'm not going to pile on like others have, because honestly, you're already standing in the wreckage. You lost the woman, lost the kid, and now you're sitting in the quiet wondering where it went wrong. But here's the truth. It didn't fall apart. You dismantled it. One joke at a time. Your wife told you what she needed. You got warnings. Hell, the kid told you with silence, body language, and distance. You want to rebuild. Start with this. Stop acting like intent matters more than impact. You were warned, you ignored it, and now you're alone. Comment 2. You described Theo's coping mechanisms like symptoms. But what you missed is they were survival responses. The shrinking, the silence, the politeness, the distance. That's what kids do when they learn that making themselves invisible is safer than asking to be respected. You saw those things and thought, he's adjusting. But what he was actually doing was disappearing. Your humor wasn't harmless. It was targeted, consistent, and let's be honest, competitive. You treated an 8-year-old like a threat to your identity. And when he didn't play along, you punished him. Subtly, repeatedly, until he stopped trying. I was that kid. I know what it feels like. I also know what it feels like when someone finally chooses you instead of the adult they're scared to confront. Your wife didn't leave to hurt you. She left to protect him. And she was right to do it. This post is the closest you've come to accountability. I hope you stay on that path. Not because it'll win them back, but because someone else's kid might need you to be better next time. Second story. My boyfriend refused to have his ex with me because I was not wearing a corset and demanded that I wear it all the time, even when my health is being ruined because I'm not skinny enough for his taste. So, I 18F have had a boyfriend 25M for about 9 months now. We met through mutual friends and instantly hit it off. He's perfect to me. Chivalrous, caring, honest, attentive, etc. But before I met him, I had serious problems with my weight. You see, I have PCOS, and I've gained a lot of weight because of it. I was 5'3" and 154 pounds, and now I'm 176. I became really insecure about this. I did tell him I was basically infertile, in case this means anything to anyone. He was okay with it. So to combat it, I started wearing a corset. Over my clothes, under them, it didn't matter. At first it was hard to breathe and extremely painful to wear, but after a while my body got used to it. However, I avoid doing exercises or whatever when I wear them because it starts up again. Anyways, it made me feel really good about myself. But when I met my boyfriend, and on every date we went on, I would wear this corset, and he didn't seem to notice or even care. So I thought it was all right. And I never mentioned it explicitly, because, why would I? But about 3 months ago, we actually went all the way, and I took off my corset, and he stopped and stared at me like I'd grown a second head. When I tried to keep going, he sort of pushed me away and said he wasn't in the mood. I soon went home after that. We didn't really talk to each other for a few days, but a few days later he asked to meet up, and I did. And when I arrived, he told me he had to stop because he wasn't used to seeing me that way. When I asked what he meant, he said, "I thought you were a little skinnier." I thought he was about to break up with me, so I said I would do whatever it took to lose the weight. And he said it wasn't possible, so I should just keep the corset on if we ever did it again, so I agreed. Which brings up the main issue. About 2 weeks ago, we were going at it, and we soon stopped. I couldn't breathe. He asks why I can't keep up, and I say it's because it's hard work with the corset on, and I say I'll take it off, and he says, "Don't, or we won't go on." So, I keep it on, but at this point, I get extremely sweaty. I swear I smell, and honestly, my body has been hurting me so bad since we started. I try to lightly bring it up each time we do it and send him signals, but he's like totally dense. When I tell him I'm not in the mood, he says I'm never in the mood. When I don't moan enough, whatever the hell that means, I'm not enjoying it enough. I'm just not sure what else to do. I get more pleasure just doing it myself, honestly. I don't want to break up with him over this. I truly do love him, and I believe he's the one. Other than in bed, he's amazing outside of it, and I don't want to give that up because of something as material as SX. So, please Reddit, what do I do? P.S. This is a burner account. Edit 1. When he said it wasn't possible, when I told him I'd lose the weight, he just meant because of the PCOS. I did share in the past that I tried weight loss and saw no progress. Edit 2. It's only been an hour, but after reading all your comments, I realized I may be way younger than I think I am. I've decided I'll speak to him this weekend. I won't wear a corset, and I'll tell him I'm not going to anymore, and I'll see what happens. Honestly, I'm extremely terrified he'll leave me. You all have expressed that it would be the right thing, but I truly thought he was the one. And I'm scared that I may not find this dream man a lot of you are speaking of in the comments. Lol. I don't think he's the type to insult or abuse me verbally. We'll see this weekend. Thank you all for your kind words and enlightenment about his age. I've seen horror stories about age gaps, but I truly thought it was more okay, seeing as I knew him only after I turned 18. I'll take this into consideration moving forward. Thank you, guys. Update. I've scheduled my meeting with him for this Saturday, so most likely no future updates until then. And I won't be breaking up with him until we firmly talk about it. This may be irrational, even plain stupid, but I still love him, and I don't have the heart to do it. Anyways, I wanted to address a lot of the main questions I see. A. So, I met him during Freshers Week before university actually started. But I was still freshly, admittedly 18 at the time anyways, and we didn't officially meet until 2 weeks after the event. I now understand that the age gap is questionable, but I want to see my parents' reaction to it first. B. I also didn't lie to him about not wearing a corset. During our first sleeping together, we'd already been dating for 6 months, and I have never not worn our corset on dates. He never acknowledged them, even when I wore them over my clothes, and I felt I didn't need to, because why would I? C. Thank you to everyone who gave me information on my PCOS. You've made me hopeful I can still become a mum when the time comes. My boyfriend doesn't want kids, so we'll see what happens when the time comes. D. For those asking me to get therapy, I'm really considering it. I'm currently not in the financial situation to afford any type of therapy, especially not on my paycheck. My boyfriend has explicitly told me he won't be paying for anything like that, so it was mainly out of the question for me until now. E. And finally, for those asking me to try losing weight again, I have. It's not much, but I've applied for a membership at my local gym, so we'll see how that works out for me. I haven't told my boyfriend yet, but he might be happy. It may make the confrontation less harsh for both of us lol. Again, thank you all for your kind words. I've never received this much support from such a large amount of people before. I can't respond to everyone, but I'm upvoting where I can. I'm totally grateful. Thank you, everyone. Edit 3. F. No, we don't use protection or plan Bs. He's usually spontaneous with this kind of stuff, and, though it's usually at his house, doesn't want to use anything. He says nothing will happen, and I suspect it's due to the PCOS, but I'm planning to speak to him about me getting on birth control. Update. The update post is out for those interested. Thank you so much for your unlimited support on this post. Comments. Commenter 1. You shouldn't be with a guy this old, even if you're legal. He wants you to do grown women stuff, while being barely legal. Sister, please leave him. It's deeper than a corset. OPO, I never considered it a big deal. He was a student at the university, and my friend's older sister introduced us. The friend in question is 19F. Commenter 2. You shouldn't have to wear a corset to be intimate. That's really horrible for you physically and your confidence, because he is clearly saying he doesn't find you attractive without it. That's just really horrible. I think you should seriously consider finding someone who loves you, warts and all, as they say. OP downvoted. HM, I never thought about it that way. His argument was that it made me feel pretty anyway, so why not just wear it all the time? OP on feeling insecure about herself and her boyfriend's compliments. OP, I am still insecure, but I don't think it's his fault. I do want to work on myself, but when he compliments me and stuff, it makes me feel good about myself, which is one of the reasons I love him. However, I was thinking about doing therapy, but my boyfriend said he wouldn't pay for it, though lol. Not that it'll change my mind, I'm just seeing things he said previously in a new light. Commenter 3. Why would he pay for your therapy? Do you have insurance? If you're dependent on him, and he won't pay for a doctor's visit, that's weird. Also, there are counselors at school or through health insurance. OP, well, I'm currently just not in the financial situation to pay for anything right now. Sometimes he likes to pay for my groceries and stuff. So yeah, I'm actually in the UK, so all we have is the NHS. And honestly, I'm not really in the mood to go through them for anything. The school counselors are usually packed. I would just feel like a burden, and I don't want to sit in line for long hours. I know there are alternatives always, but honestly, with everything I'm juggling with right now, it's best to not do it currently. But I'm looking into alternatives. Was OP dating her boyfriend when she was under 18? OP, no, nothing like that. I only met him around my freshman year of university. Has OP spoken with her doctor about her PCOS issues and birth control? OP, I've been told by my doctor that my birth rate is low, but I just chalked it down to being infertile. Unfortunately, he's not a fan of condoms or Plan Bs, though I'm considering speaking to him more about birth control, since a lot of people echo the same thing. OP on her relationship. OP, I have to come clean. This is my second relationship. A lot of things have been situationships and one-nighters. I admit my first relationship wasn't really that long either, so this is my longest. But I'm learning from these comments what to expect, and I'm grateful so many people are trying to teach me. Update. So, We went out for dinner today at 6. I didn't wear a corset today. He noticed actually. He asked me why in casual conversation. And I said I just didn't feel like wearing it. And he said, well, that's a shame. Conversation was quite slow after that. So, our dinner ends quite early, like around 2 hours later. And I ask if he could drive me home. I ask if he wants to detour while he's driving. And he says he has things to do. So I blatantly ask him if he would break up with me because I won't wear a corset. I like to think I sounded confident, but I wasn't. And I'm sure he heard it too. He says it's not like that. But he's already told me he won't have sex with me unless I wear a corset. So I tell him we're never having sex again. And he just stares at me like I'm crazy. I told him I'm not wearing corsets anymore. And then he gets really upset. He says I'm acting immature and says we've already had this conversation. So I tell him I'm tired of him not doing things that I want. I tell him that I don't want to wear a corset anymore. I tell him I'm tired of the way he talks to me when I don't listen. I tell him I want to go on birth control. And I tell him that I want to have kids one day. So, we don't talk again for the rest of the ride. And he drops me home. And he says he thinks we should take a break. I say, fine by me, and I shrug. And then he accuses me of cheating because I'm acting so dismissive about it. Then I told him straight that if he can't love me the way I am, then maybe we should have more than a break. He doesn't say anything after that and leaves. And he hasn't texted me ever since. This happened almost 2 hours ago. And I've just been crying the whole time. I'm waiting for him to text me and say we're over. So I'm contemplating texting him first. But I'm scared as hell. I've never talked back to him like that. So we've never really had any arguments. I'll update this if he texts again tonight. But I just wanted to let you guys know. All your lovely messages did a lot for me this past week. I've just been smiling at everyone's kind words. I've never felt so seen through this tiny screen before. Thank you all for your love and support. Update. So, I ended up falling asleep yesterday while waiting and thinking. But he actually texted me at 2 a.m. today, saying he was going to come over later today. I haven't said anything, but I assume he'll be here at 2 or 3, which is when I'm back from volunteering, so we'll talk today. He said he discovered something, which is really worrying me. He would kill me if he ever saw these posts, because he recently got told that I've been telling my friends about our relationship struggles, and he didn't talk to me for, like, a week. He was so mad. He said I was airing out my dirty laundry, which I get. But all I told my friends was that he wasn't listening to anything I said to him. I dread to think of what might happen, but hopefully it's nothing important. I'll create another post if what happens is too long for one post. But thank you all for staying updated. Your kind words helped me through the night. I was just reading them before I fell asleep. You all truly don't know what your words mean, but they're getting me through this. Bless you all. Comments. Commenter. If he requires you to modify your body, you need to dump him. This post is crazy. Why would he force that and make you cry? It's terrible. OP. It made me really upset when he started shouting at me, calling me immature because I didn't want to wear a corset. He didn't act like this a few months ago. He never raised his voice. Update. Hi. This is the third and probably final update of this really sad situation. For those of you who need it, here's the original and the second update. I'm sorry for posting this so late. This happened several hours earlier. I just couldn't really bring myself to start posting about it as soon as it happened. But I thought that for all the kindness, compassion, and support I received over the last few days, the least I can do is tell you what happened. So, he showed up at mine at like 4 or 5, which was later than I expected. I wasn't wearing my corset after volunteering. But when he came over, he said I looked nice, he was sorry, and he was ready to listen. So I sat him down, and I told him what I wanted to say. It was everything I previously said, just more collected, and with a better explanation. When I finished, he asked why I was saying all this stuff when I hadn't originally, and I said it's because I received advice from friends. He then proceeded to pull out the Reddit post and ask if this was the advice I was talking about. I told him they were better friends than he's ever been to me, and he raised his hand at me, but didn't touch me. At this point, I was fearful. My roommate wasn't in, and I didn't have any type of protection on me if he did try to hit me. He became quiet for a while. Then he just started shouting at me. Like actually screaming and getting all up in my face. I didn't really know what to do, so I just pushed him and told him to grow up. Because he was talking about how I was airing our dirty laundry on Reddit, how his friends had seen it, and how people were gaslighting me. He asked if I had only made this attention-seeking post to get compliments from people about how I looked good with or without a corset. I then told him to leave because I was already in tears after he started calling me fat and ugly and talked about how nobody would love me the way he did. I'm embarrassed to say I almost believed him. He just looked so pitiful. The next thing I know, he's trying to come on to me, and I said now was clearly not the time. He kept talking about how pretty I looked without a corset and how he needed me to survive, and he wouldn't get off of me. So I punched him at the spur of the moment, and he let me go. I broke up with him on the spot, and I refused to elaborate because I had already explained, and he wouldn't listen. He soon left after I threatened to tell the authorities, and I blocked him everywhere. I haven't told anyone about this in real life. I haven't left my room, and I haven't been to class today at all. I couldn't bring myself to do so. I genuinely feel like I've lost a part of me because I truly loved him. But I won't give him the satisfaction of talking about it in this post. What I felt before doesn't matter, because you're not the same man I fell in love with before. I'm sad it took almost 160k plus people total seeing my posts for me to understand that. But now that they have, I couldn't be more grateful. I've received so much support and learned so much from this experience in the last few days, more than I did in our whole relationship. So, if you're seeing this, F you. Comments. Commenter 1. Tell your friends and family ASAP. Contact the police and put in a complaint. So if he harasses you again, they will already know about him. OP, thank you. I will tell them in the coming days. Commenter 2. Just FYI, a lot of DV happens after the woman leaves. Please take everyone's advice seriously and make a report today and let someone know. See if you can stay with a friend for a few nights or one can come stay with you, etc. Put an alarm on your door so that if someone opens it when you're asleep, you'll know. And maybe even set up motion-activated recording on your laptop or whatever. Just be safe. OP, I never considered this. But after the way he behaved, I think I will do something like this. I've just told my best friend about this, so I'll see if I can stay with her for a few days. The nearest police station from me is a while away, but I'll find time to report it, and maybe ask my landlord if it'd be possible to change the locks on my apartment. He has a spare key. I don't have the money for alarm systems or anything, but I'll be sure to ask my neighbors if they can look out for me and tell my landlord the rundown of the situation. Thank you so much for caring. Commenter 3. Well, guess that's that then. I would talk to an attorney and have them help you get a restraining order. I wouldn't do this without an attorney because assault charges can go both ways. You don't want to say anything that will get twisted. OP, right, that sounds really serious. I didn't consider it, but I'll talk with my parents since they have a family lawyer. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.